I love the analogy of the snakes and ladders. So but I was thinking, what is the ladder? The ladder is prayer. Prayer is called ladder, or meditation. That's our ladders in life, right? And the snakes is the Yetzer Hara, is like what gets us down. But actually, the numerology of snake, of Nachash in Hebrew, is also Mashiach.
Right.
So the challenge itself is within it is amazing potential that is perfectly tailor-made just for me.
So like in that moment, that kind of also means you're in this moment of dark, but there's an amazing light, but there's always this opportunity of incredible salvation, because that's what Mashiach is. It's salvation, it's deliverance from, and it's not necessarily the ultimate, it's the ultimate goal, but there's also these moments in life that we have a Mashiach moment, right?
Mhm. Yeah, which are revelations. In the low moments is where the snake is, right? And yet that springboards us to everything else that comes as a result of that. Just specifically being in the low. Not that we need to be in the low all the time. Going back to what Miriam was saying, that are we going to be in the high all the times? No. And I think a lot of people are also addicted to being in the lows because that's where they feel alive, in the lower frequency, the lower vibration. Like when they're angry, when they're anxious, that's where they know themselves, right? If you don't, if you're not anxious about something, then it doesn't feel right. And we're all anxious in different ways, but I'm saying, like, when we have like this programming of this is like, when something like this happens, I just get anxious. And we're used to that because that helps us, feel safe, because that's how we know to keep our nervous system safe. But the thing is, it doesn't really keep us stabilized, because we feel anxious, we feel out of control. But that feeling of feeling out of control is something that we're used to. So that's a low that we don't want to be in, right? We've got those lows that we're like, okay, like, what is an actual message that Hashem is telling me in this feeling that I have, and we're very often just like, there's a lot of things going on in the world right now, obviously. And, and we feel feelings, and, we feel energy. And, when we are faced with that feeling, it's just important to stop for a moment to think, is this actually even coming from me? Is it a collective thing? Right? And very often it is. And we feel this collective low, or this collective fear, or this collective energy, and we identify with it. Right? So it's very important to ask ourselves, is this mine, or is it something collective? And something that, I often ask myself, just looking into feelings, where's it really coming from? Right? And not everything that's happening outside collectively is something that, by embracing that feeling, I'm helping the situation. It's actually the opposite, because it's putting me in the same frequency as everyone else, and that's not helping anyone, right? We want to rise above that frequency and above that limitation by acknowledging this is the energy. But is this energy mine? No. This energy is not mine, right? This is that collective consciousness. But what do I choose to be? Because that's really who we are, who we choose to become, and what we choose to identify with. Jane?
Let's assume for a minute that in the low, that you identify what the what the issue is, or what the limiting belief or the consciousness is that you are there. Because I am starting to suspect that that in the highs, it's like water rising, hiding some of the rocks down below, and as the water goes down, as you go into the lows, the rocks you start to see the rocks, and then you start to see what needs to be cleaned out, let's assume. And let's assume that you're in the low tide, if I could use that analogy, in the low tide moment, and you see the rocks, you identify what those limiting beliefs are. Okay, now what? Now what do you do to say, okay, I recognize that my limiting belief is whatever, lack mentality, or some other self, self-identification that may not be what Hashem wants us to identify with. Where do we go from that point?
Exactly. So we don't. In other words, you don't judge it, because we often want to fix it right away. And that's jumping the gun, because that's saying, oh, let me fix it. And that's already the ego wanting to fix it. That's already the self trying to fix itself, and it can't, right? It has to allow for the adult in the room, right? The higher power to come in and to help out, to assist, right? Our higher selves, our nefesh elokis, our godly self. So what I'm saying is that, when your analogy of the low tide, where we see the triggers or whatever, so we're not meant to like right away go over there and like move rocks around like right away. The first stage is to observe, and without judgment, right? To just observe without judgment, like to watch and to be able to decipher again between what is ours and what is not, because it's the first thing that we do. We make havdalah, we make a separation, from on Saturday night into the week, and every single day. Actually, the first blessing of in the morning is that, the idea that we're able to discern between day and night. We're able to make that distinction. We're able to make the choice. And the part of ourselves which is called the ish is very much like, okay, I got it. Like, next, I got it, fine, because we're smart. But yet we're not really solving the issue. We're just staying in it, and we feel worse about it because we try to fix it, and we've tried so many times and it didn't work. Whereas what is required of us is to watch it, to view it, not necessarily do anything and to judge it, but to be able to distinguish between what is the action, the external action, which is external to the person, versus the internal self, the higher self, right? The true self. And not to mix the two together. And that requires just our ability to just view, just to observe. The higher parts of ourselves, like Gever and Adam, now come in, or they could come in eventually, maybe when the time is right, with saying like, this is what you can choose. This is now what you can choose. Like, instead of, when you're in a barbecue with certain family members that are not your cup of tea, let's say, and like you see them and you're like, you have no choices, nowhere you could go. So instead of sitting on the side table and having a grumpy face and not wanting to like interact, like, right? Everyone has like family like that, right? You know those barbecues. So instead of like sitting on the side and, right, you can face the situation in a different way. This person is just maybe just a mean person, just like not a nice person. They've hurt you in the past. Well, now with your Adam and Gever self, you can be brave enough to be you, to be open-hearted, and to be your light, right? And to, without the fear of them extinguishing it and hurting you, right? In the way that may have been done in the past.